All right, a little indoor project tonight. It's February the 1st, 2022, and we've got our brand new rebuilt thermostatic actuator back from Centerline Alfa. It's actually being rebuilt by Wes Ingram, Ingram Enterprises, you can see there, and we've got a host of directions to follow through. So let's unpack that and have a quick look at it, and we'll do a little bit of a test. All right, we've just unpacked the new thermostatic actuator, and you can see it in comparison here to the old one. And if you want to see me testing the old one, I'll put a link to the video up in the top right-hand corner of this video so you can see me testing the original and its failure. So here is the new one, and you can already see that the stick out is already pretty prominent there. So what we're going to do is the same test as we did on the previous video on the old one. We're going to test the new one and do some measurements on the room temperature stick out as it is now. And then once we submerge the end of it in some hot water, we'll actually see what the stick out actually should be. According to my Ingram manual over here on the Spica, it says this should be hot, extended, 27 to 31 millimeters. So let's see what the measurement is once we get this into some hot water. Incidentally, before I go on and test this, I just wanted to point out that it's quite nicely packaged with all new hardware that you need to install this back on the car, which is quite nice. I thought I was going to have to reuse my old fasteners. It actually even has some machine head screws for the TA into the Spica body. If you wanted to go that route, it might be a little easier using the machine head screws and an Allen wrench. But anyway, it's got all of the directions for reinstalling and checking the reference gap, and we will talk a little bit more about that when we actually get to installing this on the car itself. All right, we've got the TA here in front of us, and we're just going to do a measurement on the stick out at room temperature. So as in my previous video, I'd mentioned that this stick out should be between 23 and 25 millimeters at room temperature. So if I take a quick measurement here from the flange, this one is actually 23 millimeters, so it's just at the minimum stick out. So what we'll do now is we'll get our hot water and we will measure this with the other end. The temperature sensing bulb in hot water will see what the stick out ends up being. In the end, it should be 27 to 31 millimeters extended from this flange. So let's get the water out and we'll do that test. All right, we've got our hot water standing by, so we're just going to stick the sensor end in, and we will watch the stick out move. And I'll try to do a little bit better job so you can actually see this in real time. So let's just pick this up. We'll handle it carefully. We don't want to bend anything. It's not that fragile, but anyway, hopefully you'll be able to see this. And let's see here if you can start to see that. Extending. So again, we're looking for an extension of 27 to 31 millimeters in total. Let's take a quick measurement of where we're at. I would say we're at 28 millimeters, so it's working as it should. Hopefully you can see that. It's not exactly in focus, but hopefully you can see the stick out on that. So we're good to go as far as this working properly. So the next thing we'll do is actually install it in the car. Well, Friday afternoon, another couple of days of snow, so I'm going to get out here and shovel again before too long. And we've got a cold weather warning in effect, so I'm going to be shoveling in the freezing cold shortly. Anyway, going to the garage, turn the heat on, get a little bit more cozy out here. And start working on the 81 Alfa Romeo Spider. Alright guys, as mentioned, it's Friday afternoon and we have a big weekend's worth of plans for the 1981 Alfa Romeo Spider Veloce project. And the primary focus of the weekend is to get this new thermostatic actuator installed. And then we're going to play around with some lighting issues. We've got some third brake light options we're going to explore, and we've got some LED lighting for the taillights and the signal lights for the rear that we're going to explore, along with a few other things. So let's get started on prepping to get the TA installed into the car. All right, let's try to do a little bit of an overview of what we're trying to achieve here. And I wanted to go over some of the things going to be a little bit of a challenge on this 1981. The first thing is this big plenum chamber here that was on 80s and 81s, I believe. And this makes it a little bit more difficult space-wise to get down there and work on the Spica pump, and in particular the rear of the pump that I need to get to, and we'll show you what I'm talking about in a little bit. But the first thing I wanted to take a look at was where the, and again, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see of this, but we'll try. So I'm just trying to get to the hole where the thermostatic actuator actually goes in, and you can see a little screw in there. I believe you can anyway. And on the 80 and 81, it sounds like there's a anti-tamper cap, and if you look in there, it looks like that cap is still installed, so this has never been adjusted previously. Under that cap should be a slotted heads adjustment screw that you can turn in and out, and that will change the reference gap at the rear of the pump that we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But I think you can see that. Anyway, I'm going to try to get that cap off, and we'll take a look at that, see if I can get the cap off first, and then we'll go from there. All right, we're following the Ingram Enterprises installation instructions for the TA. So we're on point number 5, where we've actually removed the old thermostatic actuator, and we're going to put the new thermostatic actuator in place in the intake manifold, and we're going to add the fasteners there. We're not going to use the mid clamp yet, because again, this may have to come in and out of the car. So we're going to skip point number 6. I've decided not to play around with those anti-tamper screws or the caps on the adjustment screw within the Spica pump temporarily. We're going to just jump down point number 7, and we're going to install the pump or the TA into the actual Spica pump body at the bottom. And they've sent me some nice little hex machine screws to be able to do that. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll come back and give you an update. All right, guys, the TA is installed, and that was a bit of a challenge. These fasteners are not very accessible. I mean, they're accessible. I can get my hand there, but you can't get a wrench in. You can't get a socket on those nuts because it's too close to the body or the bulb, which is the temperature sender part to the Spica. So yeah, it's very, very tight. So you end up using like a box end wrench kind of on the end of the screws. So can't get a ton of leverage. Good idea on the machine head screws, the hex headed screws, to get the body into the pump down there. As mentioned, the mid pipe clamp is not attached yet. Next step now is to put coolant back in, because we had to drain coolant to get this out. So I've bought some new coolant. I've got it sitting out in the car. We'll go grab that, add some coolant, and then we'll run this car up to temperature. All right, guys, Saturday morning, and we're picking up where we left off. So yesterday we had installed the thermostatic actuator, and then I got to a point where I wanted to start the car. The only problem was I didn't have enough fuel to be able to do that. The fuel light was staying on when I keyed the car, so I was having some low fuel pressure issues, which I attributed to not having any gas in the tank. So that meant that I had to go out last night, shovel the driveway, brush the car off, go get gas, and come back. And by the time I did that, it was about 10 o'clock at night. So I figured I'd just leave the cold start until today. So that's what we're going to do. So let me set you up on the camera. It's definitely a cold start. It's 10 degrees or 11 degrees Celsius out in the grass. It's just over 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's see if this thing will start with the new thermostatic actuator installed. All right, not the best angle I know, but it's going to have to do. All right, I charged the battery overnight because I hadn't charged it in quite some time, and I've been doing quite a bit of like a little electrical testing and some cranks of the car, etc., etc. So we charged the battery, and we've just hooked that back up. So let's get the key in here. And before you comment on the annoying buzzer, Doc, the new owner of this car, has told me that I can actually go ahead and take that buzzer out, or at least take the wiring off of it so it doesn't buzz anymore. But I haven't done that yet, so forgive the annoying buzz. All right. Alright, there you go. So I'd forgotten that you need to depress the gas pedal about a quarter inch before you try to start the car. So here it is idling nicely. So we're going to let this come up to temperature. And as mentioned previously, I need to bring it up to temperature in order to check that reference gap at the back of the speaker pump. So the car needs to be plus 175 degrees Fahrenheit in order to do that. So we'll just let the car warm up here. I'm going to crack the side door open. The garage door is frozen shut, so I can't get that door open. So let's crank the side door open. We'll let this warm up and we'll come back. And just for reference right now, I've got the throttle pulled on the dash here because we're warming the car up. And according to the manual, I want you to warm the car up on the hand throttle for a few minutes before driving away. So it's definitely cold out here, as mentioned. It's going to get colder now that the garage or the side door is open, and it's about minus 15 degrees Celsius outside. And yeah, I've got my shorts on out here, so it's a little breezy. Anyway, we'll let this warm up a bit before we push the throttle in and let it idle where it's going to idle at. Alright, it's been a couple of minutes and the temperature is just coming up, as you can see. So let's push that throttle off. We're idling just about 900 now. Sounding pretty darn good, nice and smooth. Again, it's just barely heated up as well, so that's very, very good. Sounds excellent. So what that new thermostatic actuator is doing is that when the car is in a cold condition, it sets the speaker pump up to run rich. And as the car heats up, that pin extends and acts on the rack within the pump, and it leans the mixture out. So as the car gets warmer, the mixture gets more lean. Running great. Very smooth. Well, again, I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see this or not, but there is the reference gap back there that we're looking to adjust. So it's going to be tough to get in there with a feeler gauge. So we got one standing by. You can see that gap is closed up significantly. The car's still not up to operating temperature. So we'll continue to run the car until it gets up there. Alright, just coming up to operating temperature now. The car is running beautifully. Have a look inside here. I don't think it's going to get any hotter than this. Well, that's looking good. So there's my idle. And again, this tach reads a little bit high. It's probably idling around 900. Could probably idle a little lower, but that's not bad at all. So the next step is to disconnect the long rod, which is the rod that connects the bell crank here. There's a short rod here and a long rod that goes down to the speaker. You can just see maybe the ball of it there. That goes all the way down to the speaker, so you need to disconnect this rod in order to check the gap. So we're let the car run for another couple minutes, and then we'll shut it down, disconnect the rod, and check the gap. And we'll adjust it if required. I'm hoping it doesn't require adjustment, but you never know. Alright, I've disconnected the long rod, and that gap is almost, well, I can barely see it. I mean, obviously I need to get a feeler gauge in there, but it looks to be almost zero at the moment with the long rod detached. Let's see if I can get a feeler gauge in there. Again, 0.19 feeler gauge. Let's see if I can get that down in there to measure it. And obviously when you reattach the long rod, you don't want to change the measurement down there, so you need to either shorten or lengthen the long rod to accommodate. Alright guys, we've got the long rod completely out of the car, so we've just wanted to shorten it slightly, so We've shortened it a little bit, and we're going to go back and we're going to check the gap now and see where we're at. All right, guys, long rod back installed, reference gap checked. Seems to be running pretty well. We'll check it again. We're just running it back up to temperature. We'll check that measurement once more, but I think we're good. So idling just about right. The idle came down a tiny little bit. All right, we'll call that done for now. I think we're going to do a little bit more tuning once we get the car out on the road in the spring. We'll do the seat of the pants test. But for now, I think we can move on. Like I said, we'll do one more reference check, and then that'll be it for now. We'll move on to some other little jobs. All right, just before we move on to another project, I just want to mention that I did do up the middle clamp on the TA, so that's good to go in there now. And like I said, we'll play around maybe a little bit more with the tuning aspects of this once we get it on the road and do a little bit of driving in the spring. But for now, let's move on. All right, guys, we're just about to start the LED conversion in the rear of the car. So I've got a couple of different styles of bulbs here from a company called Alfa. These were purchased off of Amazon. We've got two different styles of bulbs. We have a 1156 bulb, which is an amber LED, and you can see that here. There's amber on the face and on the sides. And we have an 1157 bulb that is red LEDs, again, same face and sides. So the 1156 amber bulb will be used for the turn signal, and the 1157 red LED will be used for the running lights and brake light application. I just wanted to mention from a brightness or light perspective that the stock bulbs are rated in candle power, and when I do the conversion from candle power to lumens that the new bulbs are rated in, the stock bulbs come out to be about 400 lumens. These are 600 lumens for both the turn signal and the running and brake lights, so significantly brighter. All right, so I've done a little pre-work back here and removed the lenses, and if you haven't seen my previous video where I removed the lenses, all you need to do is undo these four fasteners here, these long tubes, aluminum tubes, that go through the holes here in the back. And there's two here and two on the inside, and that will allow you to pop your lenses off and get to your bulbs. Obviously, the outside bulb is your turn signal, so this will be the amber bulb that we're going to be replacing. And then the inside here is your red bulb, which will be for the running lights and brake lights. So we're going to be replacing these two bulbs. I'm not too concerned about my backup light. We're just going to leave that as a standard bulb. So we'll go ahead and we'll replace these bulbs here. Now, I'm not sure whether this is going to work or not, but we'll do a light comparison. I mean, it's pretty bright in the garage right now. I really don't want to have to go over there and turn all the lights off. It's like 4 different switches in the garage to turn the lights off. But we'll do a comparison with the lights on in the garage of the current lights. So let me turn those on and we'll have a quick look at what the current lights look like. We'll see if we can see a difference once we install the LED bulbs. All right, there is a look at the running lights. So I'm not going to be able to depress the brake light, obviously, because I'm not in the car, but you can get an idea from the running lights. And let's turn on the turn signal here. And there you can see the brightness of the turn signal. Again, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to tell the difference once the LEDs are in, but I guarantee you they're going to be brighter. All right, let's do that. All right, guys, there's a look at the running light, and I would definitely say that's much brighter. Let's have a look at the signal light. All right, there's a look at the turn signal, and again, that looks good. It's definitely brighter. Let's see if I can set you up on the tripod, and or at least I'll sit you up on something and see if I can apply the brake, and you can see how the brake lights work. All right, let's give the brake lights a shot. Looking pretty good to me from up here. All right, I think we can call that a success. Let's move on. You might be able to get a better representation now on a white background for that tail light. How much light that puts out. It's a little bit darker here, so anyway, that's looking good. Let's turn on the turn signal. Make sure that's working on that side before we button it up. Looking good. All right, let's button things up and we'll take one last shot. All right, late afternoon, still daylight, and I figured I would turn the garage lights off here and have a look at these LEDs. And they are looking pretty darn good in my opinion. Definitely brighter than the stock bulbs. I know it's really hard to tell in this environment, but trust me, they are. So let's have a quick look at what the signal lights look once they're activated. I would put the hazards on, but the hazard switch is not there. That's looking pretty darn good, in my opinion. Definitely bright enough. Alright, so we'll call that job done, and we will move on to something else. Alright, next project. Doc has asked me to investigate the option of putting on a third brake light for safety purposes. And as you know, the lights are a little bit more dim in the back. They're a little lower. The car is smaller, so it's a little harder to see, so it's not necessarily a bad idea to do this. Now, I'm not sure. I think Doc might have wanted to have this as a temporary option. I'm not sure if this is going to be a full-time permanent option. But there's a couple of options here. We'll give him the ability to remove this if he so wishes. All right, the first one I'm going to show you is from a company called Brake Lighter, and it's a fairly large light. I've already got it installed in the car, and I'll give you some pros and cons of each of these. So the other couple lights I've got, there's one here called from Streetworks. They do street rod stuff, so that's kind of interesting. It's quite small, but quite bright. And then there's this other one that I don't think is going to cut the mustard. Chinese one that I don't even think I can get to work, but this one may be more of an application to go on the license plate, which I think might be a little bit low on this car. You're looking for something up a little bit higher, so something up around the rear of the convertible top, on top of the trunk lid, somewhere around there. So let me show you these options. I've got this one, like I said, installed in the car temporarily, and we'll go take a look at it on the rear of the car, and we'll see it light up. Alright guys, here's the first option from Brake Lighter, and as I mentioned, it's a fairly large light. The good thing about this one is it's got suction cups for feet, and it's also adjustable as far as the angle is concerned, so you can tip it up or tip it down depending on the angle of light that you want to see at the rear of the car. So again, that's obviously going to be a removable light. I've put it where it will not foul with the boot lid or the trunk lid as it goes up. It's still going to clearance it at full lift, so you still have some room there. I like the cable because it runs flat into the trunk gap here, and I should be able to hook it up with no issues. So this one's got some positivity to it, let's say, and I kind of like it. And again, it's temporary. It could be mounted temporarily, or you could leave it there permanently, but it should be fairly easy to remove it. I'll put like a spade connector, for example, on the connections within the trunk to remove it quickly. If he's at a show, for example, and he doesn't want to show that light, then he can remove it. So anyway, let me show you this lit up. It's fairly bright, and that's exactly what you want, obviously. And that is the highest location I can mount it here at the rear of the car. So let's have a look when it's lit up. All right, we'll check this first light out, and we've just got my booster pack in here with that wired up. So let's crank this on, and you can have a look. It's got a good brightness to it at the rear here, so this does have the functionality to actually work as left and right turn signals as well. I don't think we want to do that. I think we just want to maintain this as a third brake light. So it's nice and bright. Even in the bright garage, you can obviously see that's quite bright. So that is option number one. Let's go to option number two. All right, the next light is significantly smaller. This is the one from Watson's Streetworks. So they do street rods. So let's have a look at this one. Let's fire it up. All right, there is the one from Watson's, and as mentioned, it's significantly smaller than the other one. It is magnetic, so it can be placed pretty much wherever you want it. The only thing I don't really like are the wires coming out of the back of it. It would have been nicer, obviously, if they were coming out of the front or sort of at a center, that I could sort of, you know, bring it into the trunk a little bit more cleanly. So I'm not really digging that. As far as the angle is concerned, it's not bad. It's not adjustable, but I think it might work as far as the angle of the car, just the natural angle of the car, the way it drops off. So it's not extremely bright. I'm not sure if that would really get your attention or not, but there's another option to consider. It's quite small, quite unobtrusive, but is it bright enough? So there are the two options to consider. All right, guys, since we have it, I figured I'd just go ahead and temporarily mount this brake light here that's kind of intended to be mounted on top of the license plate. So we've just got it zip tied in here. So you can take a quick look at this. Let's turn this on. So that's what that looks like. Again, I think this might be a little bit low, although it's really not that much lower, really, when you consider, you know, how close it is to the deck lid. So again, that's going to have to be a decision that Doc makes. Maybe he wants to go with something like this versus something like that, or something like the larger one that we had on earlier. Now, just a quick notation on this one. Doc also might decide that he wants to get rid of the suction cups and directly mount this. Maybe I could epoxy some magnets on the bottom here, and maybe with a little vinyl surface protector in between, and maybe he wants to get this a little bit more closely mounted to the deck. So that's another option for this, is just to use some rare earth magnets to put this on temporarily. So anyway, we'll see what Doc likes, and then we will go ahead and figure out how we're going to wire it up. Some options will be easier than others. This option here would probably be easiest from a wiring perspective, trying to hide the wires. But anyway, we'll see what Doc wants to go with, and then we'll go from there. Let's move on to another project. Playing around with the stereo a little bit. And Doc has sent me another option for Bluetooth. I didn't even know this was available. So this is a Bluetooth cassette, and it's actually rechargeable. I think it's got a battery life of 6 hours. There's an on and an off button here, and there's the charging port there. You can also pair it with this on and off button as well. So we're going to try this out and see if it works. I got my phone out here, so let's see if I can get this to pair, and let's see if I can stream some music from my phone using the old 1981 cassette deck. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Let's see if we can get this to pair. So apparently you hold the on-off button until this starts blinking blue and red. So it's like 6 or 7 seconds, I believe. There's the on. Now it's supposedly in pairing. So let's see if I can find this on my Bluetooth. There it is there. Okay, it's connected. Let's plug her in, and we'll come back and see if I can get it to stream something. Well, unfortunately, the concept I like, but it doesn't actually function. You can kind of hear it. That's streaming from my phone. I've got my phone volume turned all the way up. Got the volume on the radio turned up, and you can hear that is all I've got. Let me, in comparison, let's eject that tape, and you can hear the radio. So, unfortunately, that's not going to work as an option. Back to just tape deck and stereo. One of the other things I wanted to have a look at before I go in for the night and start editing a video is the grill covers for the speakers. And as mentioned in a previous video, the stock grill covers will not work because they'll actually hit the cone of the speaker. So we were looking at other options for grills, and Doc has sent me another option in here. Now this will not work either straight out of the box. As you can see, that's still going to foul on the actual cone when we go to mount this. However, I think I can probably modify it to make this work if I get the grinder out, the die grinder, and increase the inside diameter of this mount, and then re-drill these holes out a little bit further towards the edge. I think that will work. We can get around the outside of the cone, and then we can actually snap the cover on. The cover just snaps onto the outside of this. I actually like the cover. It's pretty unobtrusive. I think it'll go well in the car. So I'll ask Doc if he'll allow me to modify these to see if I can get them to work, and if he will allow me to, I believe these will be okay in the car. So I'll wait back for some feedback from Doc. All right, one more last thing before we go in and start editing this video. Carpet samples. They have been ordered. Apparently they were shipped last week. They are on their way. They're coming from California, and as we know, shipping can take a little bit longer these days in this current environment. So not sure when they'll show up, but that will be the next big decision we need to make on this car, is the carpet color. So once we get those samples in, I'll share them with you, and you can weigh in on the carpet color. So I think that's it for tonight, guys. So thanks as always for watching, commenting, and subscribing. We'll see you back out here tomorrow, and we'll figure out a few more other things to do.